Welcome to today's episode of CLCI Live, brought to you by the award-winning and ICF accredited school, Certified Life Coach Institute. Sit back, relax, and enjoy today's episode.
Hi, everybody. Hello.
Hello.
We're going to have Mike introduce himself. But before we, again, I mean, not that you haven't been here before, but before we get going, I want to first ask, beg, plead, remind everybody to go ahead and please, I'm hearing myself twice. Is that me? Is that on my end? To please comment, join in the conversation. We want to hear from you. Please, please, please. We cannot do this without you, and we would love to hear from you. So if you have any questions, if you have any feedback, input, anything you are thinking, please, please, please let us know. And hi, Jen. Good to see you. Jen is a little under the weather. That's why she's not with us today. But we have Mike here and Kyle. So if you guys want to introduce yourselves, then we can talk about what we're talking about.
Hey, I'm Mike James, one of the facilitators here with CLCI. I'm excited, as always, when I get to be on a live. So, as Brooke said, just make sure you're involved. Let us know. Drop some feedback, questions in the chat, and I'm excited. Let's do it.
Awesome. Kyle.
Nice. I'm Kyle Rodriguez. I'm one of the class technicians. So you might have seen me in one of the level 1, level 2 classes helping out. And I'm excited to be here live today too, and looking forward to Jen's questions.
I know. I'm excited for Jen's questions too, because I believe that she has questions all day. So what is our topic today, guys?
Pain. How it's
we came to bring the pain.
Yes. Pain is weakness leaving the body.
Is it really? Maybe?
No, is it?
No. That's okay. Is that
no? When you really think about it, it's not.
Right.
How pain can be motivating towards our goals, and we can utilize pain and suffering. I don't know about and suffering though. When we say pain, are we talking about purely physical pain or like?
Well, we haven't gotten that far yet, have we? I mean,
well, we're not far right now. I'm asking that question.
Why don't we first define pain, and then maybe we'll get our answer? Yeah.
No. Do we need to define what pain is?
I think
yourself really hard right now.
I really think we should define what pain is, because everybody might have a different interpretation. So I think it's important to ask that question. So
it's a noun. It's physical suffering or discomfort caused by illness or injury. Pain.
So suffering.
Thank you, Kyle, for your definition.
First Google search that came up.
Mike, what is pain to you?
For me, honestly, just to keep it simple, right, it's just something that you feel in a negative manner. Physically, I would say.
Does it have to be physical?
No, not at all. Not at all. But just, not getting into the layers of it, right? That first onset, I guess, that physical, but many times, actually, especially as we're going with this live, it's not physical, but that's to describe it if I was looking for a non-dictionary term or what it means to me.
I think that what's interesting, is pain can begin either physically or maybe emotionally, but it often has a way of transforming itself into the physical. If it starts mental, it probably might start to show itself physically, and if it starts physically, it often will show itself mentally as well. So pain has the ability to cross the bounds, I think, of just being in a physical or emotional. If it starts in one place, I think it often moves into a secondary place in our
definitely
experience.
Right.
Jerome?
I don't know that I want to get too creative and out of the box with my definition. It's pretty much the same as Mike's, and I mean Kyle, he did get the Webster definition, I'm sure. But something that hurts to me, just what comes to mind, anything that hurts. I think I associate pain more so emotionally, usually, than physical. Maybe it's because I'm not running around and hurting myself like I was when I was a kid anymore. most of the pain I get, if we're speaking about physical pain, is probably going to happen at the gym. Other than that, again, when I think about pain, I associate it usually emotionally. When I'm gonna think about pain, it's usually what I tie it to.
Pain is stubbing your pinky toe when you're walking in the
Oh my god! Like
That's
when you
pain.
kick it really hard. Oh, you feel that in your soul. Like, oh my goodness.
No sounds can come out. It's it's the Peter Griffin. No sounds can come out. It's just the I can't verbalize what's going on, but I know what I feel right now. It's so deep.
God. Yeah, it gets so deep, right? It's like core pain. Like, oh my god. Yes, I know exactly what that feels like.
And
go ahead.
adding on to what Jerome said, I think that's interesting. Like when you mentioned that when you were a kid, I think a lot of times as we get older, just life experience and all that stuff, it does change to where now it's more of an emotional thing because of what we're dealing with as adults versus kids. A lot of times as kids, it was physical. I fell off the slide. I ran into something, I slammed the door with my finger. But as an adult, is now we're dealing with all the things that comes with being an adult and the decisions we make. And it's just more emotional and mental pain over just that physical. So when you said that, I thought about that as well.
I think there's I'm sorry, Jerome, I interrupted. Go.
No, I was just gonna say, not to say I'm like a masochist or anything, but I think the older you get, you kind of get used to physical pain to an extent, unless something that's never happened to you before, that's drastic, until that happens. For the most part, stubbing your toe, I don't think you ever get over that. But for the most part, you kind of bump your shoulder into something. Even if you are someone that's a regular at the gym, you kind of we'll speak about that, I'm sure, utilize it to your advantage. Maybe you don't even view it as pain anymore. It's just energizing to you. But yeah, I think emotional pain is something that comes in so many different forms that it's never something that you really can get used to.
Well, we'll get there.
Okay.
Because so we're talking about pain and we're talking about it us sort of adapting to it or getting more used to it as an adult. I think that there's another element to that too. I think that there might be an expectation for us as adults to be able to sort of handle our own pain. Like to be able to, as a kid, we're kind of like running to others too, but there's this kind of, I think as an adult, this like expectation of,
how often do you see
together?
How often do you see an adult like trip on the ground and scrape their knees and then start bawling their eyes out?
I want to.
Right. I don't.
Kids like express their pain very emotionally by bawling and crying their eyes out and seeking that like comfort for the pain. Whereas adults, you tend to handle the pain.
We've like been trained to internalize it, but I don't know. Maybe those kids got it right. Maybe they figured something out though. I'm in pain. I need help. What? No, Anthony.
I think there's a subtlety to the pain though. Like as an adult, you tend to like categorize your pain and like worry about it in different levels. Like, okay, the pain at the gym. This is like a sore pain. This is good pain. I should be okay with this. Oh, there's a very sharp pain in my knee when I run at the gym. I might need to go to the doctor for that, or I might need to be careful with what I'm doing because I might really injure myself. So there's a lot of subtlety to pain as you grow older and you start to notice what kinds of pains there are and how severe they are.
So we've talked about all this in a physical realm. How does this apply in a mental health realm, to a mental pain realm, to a,
heartbreak? I'm thinking about like heartbreak. So I mean, your first breakup might have been the hardest thing that you ever went through. You might have thought life was over. I'm never going to be loved. I'm never going to love again. And then maybe as you continue growing up and going through those experiences, you understand how to deal with loss or people that leave you. And heartbreak might be a little bit more able to handle. It's still hard. It's always hard losing somebody in your life, but it's a little bit more copable. I think that's the right word.
What's interesting is I have said this many times is when I am like feel that kind of I feel it or physically too. Like when I understand why they say heartbreak, because like I feel it. Like it's like when I'm that upset or anything, there's a physical, actual feeling in my chest, in my that I get, and it's an interesting physical manifestation of my emotional state for sure. Which I think is true. I mean, if we just look at the hormone levels and the way we breathe and the way we, when we're upset, how jumbled our thought process is can really
Yeah.
heavily affect how we are reacting in certain spaces. So now let's talk about the other flip side of this, is the gain part for a minute. And then we can maybe bring them together. So we're going to move into this space of gain. I'm thinking of like the 3-year-old that's screaming and crying because they stubbed their toe, right? As an adult, we but as a kid, we're gonna let it out, right? Unless you're the kid that's just ignoring it and stubbing and running and just keep going, like it's not stopping me. I mean, could you tell that kid, okay, wait, turn this into gain right now?
Yeah.
I think you could. It could always be a valuable learning lesson. Something that's, you're still gonna be in pain there in that exact moment. But if you just sit on it and let it happen and don't do anything about it, then you're not really gaining anything, because maybe the next time you run around to a situation similar, you go ahead and do the exact same thing. But maybe next time, don't run around the corner like that. Maybe next time wear some shoes if you're outside playing with your friends. So I could see that being the instance where maybe they could use that to their benefit, or they can gain in that moment.
I have a
and it's kind of
argument.
Go ahead, Anthony.
I was going to give just an example of how pain is sometimes just not gain, and there's really nothing to gain from enduring it. My little cousin, I remember this one time when I was maybe middle school or something like that. He like kicked a wall or kicked a cement block on accident, somehow hurt his foot really bad, and he was crying, complaining. This kid was always he was kind of like a go cry wolf kind of deal. And so my aunt and uncle were just like, oh, just walk it off, you'll be fine, like don't worry about it, you're okay. And he's constantly crying about it and complaining about it. And after about a week, eventually they're like, oh, maybe we should take him to the hospital. And turned out he broke his toe.
He was fine. It was just his toe.
Well, yeah, fine.
Right.
There are some points where just enduring the pain doesn't really get you anything.
No,
you gotta know when and how to articulate your pain.
Every time I've broken a bone, which I've done quite a few times, and it's always been my wrist, my hand, my foot, weird appendages, but I always would go like 24 hours, like of it just in like throbbing, before I finally get fed up and I go, okay, there's something really wrong here. I gotta go see a doctor. But I always, for some reason, make myself suffer through that like 24 to 36 hour period just to see if it's gonna get better or stay as it is. And then eventually I just get to the point where I'm like, no, this is broken or something, and I end up going.
It made me think about that. It could be that happy medium, right? Because back to how we open, right? And Anthony said that quote we always hear, right? Pain is weakness leaving the body. And we also hear no pain, no gain.
Yep.
But truly, I've heard this said, and I don't know when. I was personal training. I don't know if a client told me or it was something that just came up, but pain is really that indicator light on your dashboard that there's a problem. Something's going on and it has to be addressed. So that happy medium, right, of now moving from the pain to the gain is when that issue is addressed. So when you were a kid and you bawled out, either in that space, you wanted the emotional comfort of somebody running and saying, oh my God, you poor baby, and you got a boo-boo. Let me give you a Band-Aid. Let's clean it up. And you said, oh, you feel so much better. Even if it didn't hurt, just the emotion side of it, you calm down, right? But even now, when we talk about gain, it's now whatever that level is, spiritual, emotional, physical, where we now address what that pain was, and we go to that, what we get on the other side of that. I think that's where that bridge comes from, the pain to the gain.
I absolutely love that analogy of it being like an indicator. So there's a disorder that kids that super rare work and the it's where people are born without the ability to feel pain. And it's actually a very dangerous disorder because they don't have that alarm system. So they don't know when they're putting their hand on a fire, that's hot, and they end up burning themselves so bad that it goes to the bone. They end up, doing things like when they're kids, like chewing through their own teeth or like where I've just horrible things where they've had one girl had to have all of her teeth pulled as a kid because she would just bite and could feel no pain. And so it's just it's a very important thing that's built into us. And I think that's true for us both emotionally and physically. I think we very obviously address it on the emotional side, but I would say that the feeling of emotional pain is equally an important indicator for us as well. Absolutely. So with that, when we're talking about pain and it being an indicator, let's bring in to what does that mean for coaches and coaching?
It means you give a little kiss on the kneecap whenever your coach or whenever your clients get hurt.
A little Band-Aid.
Give them a little hug, a little kiss, a little Band-Aid, make them feel better.
I think the big part of that, as it applies to coaching, right? I think it's the awareness. And, often like in class, I share with that in terms of the coaching space, that's the first step, the awareness there, right? That if we go back to the analogy of the indicator light on your dashboard, what pain is, it's something flashing, telling you, okay, something here. That instant when physical, if we were to stay on the physical, when you stub your pinky toe or your toe on that corner, it's instantly, you address it. So whatever the reaction is. So in the coaching space, it's really now leaning into it just a little bit of, okay, what's happening? What's actually happening? Because before we have that awareness to say, this is what's going on, we don't even know to figure out how to solve it, right? Or to get to the game point. We got to address first that there's something going on, or we're in that space, what you just shared, Brooke, like we're touching that hot stove and we can't even feel it. And just like hand is just, okay, you got to move your hand and notice that you're feeling something right here. Now we can address what we need to do to this outside circumstance or this state that we're in to move this to the solution. So in the coaching space, I think it's important to, as a coach, to actually see what's going on, because I hear it and I was like, oh, well, yeah, you have that bruise on your knee. Well, it happened because I got a weak Achilles. And as I was taking that step, I dipped a little bit. So instead of us thinking that we know what it is really bringing awareness around what's going on. I think that's the first step to getting to that next, that transition from that pain.
I also want to add to, maybe for our newer coaches, it might not be your job as a coach to relieve pain when it presents itself in a client. I could see that sort of inclination where a client talks about a pain point either they want to work on or pain that comes along with a goal they're working on, and the coach sort of latches onto them and be like, okay, what can we do to work on that? That might not be your job. And sometimes, that's okay. You can address it and talk about it, but don't make it your goal to solve every single piece of suffering that your client has, because sometimes it comes with the goal in mind. So, for example, I'll talk about kind of two different clients, one on the more mental side, more on the more physical side. But one client was a runner and she wanted to run to lose weight. And we talked about how difficult and painful it was for her in the mornings to run, but that was like the only time she could like actually do it because she had the time. So I asked her, okay, is that a block that's preventing you from running? She's like, no, I'll still do it. It just sucks. I'm like, okay, is that something you want to work on as far as managing it? She's like, no, maybe like just being okay with it. And so we didn't exactly solve her pain just because she was achy in the morning. We just, found ways to encourage her to run more. On the opposite end of the spectrum, on the more mental side, someone wanted to leave their current business and go into a new business, and that was very painful. Or she anticipated that it was going to be painful because there's going to be less money and she doesn't know what she wants. There's like this mental distress going on. And so the conversation was just, do you want to work on these blocks, or do you want to, what exactly do you want to work on in terms of your distress here? So yeah, hitting the pain is not the most important thing when they talk about pain.
Yes, but I think awesome examples of how it may come up. But I think there's a subtlety too, though, in this as well, that those are very obvious discussions of pain. But I think that we as coaches can maybe use pain as an indicator for us, the coach. And what I mean by that is by paying attention to subtle cues or subtle things that our clients say, we might be alerted to maybe things that are going on with them that they're not outwardly sharing, that there may be pains that are not fully in the forefront, or maybe they haven't even fully realized or worked through, that we can sort of begin to uncover as blocks towards their goals. And I think that pain can work as an indicator for us, right? As a coach as well with our clients.
But
Jerome?
Go.
I was going to say, Anthony brings up a good example. To be careful, yes, I agree 100% with Brooke that pain can be an indicator, but also there is subjectiveness to pain, I think. Kind of with Anthony, what he was mentioning, who was the runner, who she said, nah, I don't really want to deal with it. We could use that as an initial indicator to say, let's work on this. She doesn't maybe want to work on that. So the fact that Anthony explored that with her and got to the point where you guys eventually could work to what you really came into the session for, I think is important. So that's always, that just comes back to making sure that you're thoroughly asking questions and getting through to exactly what your client really wants to work on.
What I want to respond to Brooke with about that, like seeing the signs of pain. I'm wondering how you do that accurately, because like even the most like strictly physical sense, like you can tell me you're an 8 out of 10 on the pain scale. I don't know what that feels like. And if you don't say that and you're just feeling pain and maybe displaying signs of pain, I don't really know what that feels like and how that feels like for you.
So I think when I say that, I think it's an alert for us to be able to ask around it. And when I'm saying subtle, what I mean is we can look at our clients' faces and see in a moment that when they're speaking about something, they're excited about something, or it looks painful. Like we can see their through their body language, intonation, and other things that whatever they're talking about. And I'm not saying like it's causing, maybe it just seems like it's painful for them to do. Like, you know what I mean? Like when I'm not excited about something, I might not be saying I'm not excited, but it's something I have to do. That can become very obvious in the way that I approach it, and the way I talk about it. It's not going to be something I'm thrilled to discuss or thrilled to delve into. So I think as a coach, what we can begin to do is ask when we see a client that's gone from one state that is maybe positive or gung-ho to something that's a lot more flat, or something that's a lot more, we, instead of assigning that they're in pain, we might see that as an indicator, as a moment to ask, hey, can I share an observation with you? Yes. So while you're sharing about that point, I noticed that you went from being very excited to looking far less so, or or something along those lines. And that is then it allows them to share. But us as a coach, I think that it's an opportunity for us to be able to make those observations and sort of see, oh wait, there's a shift of energy here. This does not seem like the client having fun and enjoying or what have you, and begin to sort of dig deeper and ask those deeper questions. Can I ask around that? And if they're willing to go there, it might be an opportunity to open doors. If of course, always if the client is willing and it's where they want to go. I think that's
definitely. That's absolutely, I mean, that's spot on, because when we notice something, right, and it goes back to, you were answering that question that Jen put in the chat, it's how do we bring that awareness around it, right? And that's it. It's the actually that analogy I made about the indicator light, right? Have you ever, took a ride with someone where you say, your tire pressure light is on, and they say, oh, it's been there so long, maybe they're not even aware. So in the coaching space, when we do that, say, you know what, I just noticed, I don't know what happened right there, Brooke, but something changed when you were saying XYZ. And when I reflected back, sometimes the client is like, oh, wow, I didn't even know that my shoulders, I didn't even know I was looking down, or I was looking.
I
And
didn't
so
even.
I think the important step is what, as you were saying, Brooke, let them put in those adjectives or what it means. Now we can proceed. Like, tell me what's going on here. And it's, you know what? Wow, you caught that. I didn't even realize that, I was frowning or whatever happened. And so I think that's the biggest thing, is we definitely want to bring awareness to it when we see it.
And also be prepared for if your client might respond with, this is my, oh, that's just my thinking face. That's just my,
Right.
and don't like dig into that. And oh, okay, awesome. Like, you know what I mean? Or, would not say awesome. Don't say awesome.
No.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. I just wanted to share the observation and make sure that we were on the same page, that I was understanding, that I knew what was going on. Thank you for the clarification. But I think it's okay for us to make those observations, because those might be moments, but be prepared as a coach also for them not at all to go the way you think they're going to go, and be okay
That's
with
it,
that.
yeah.
Don't bring your
Yep.
ego into it. Right. Jen, I think, asked us a question here. When the coach brings the pain to the client's awareness, the client is triggered by it and rejects it, what should the coach do? Ooh.
Let it go.
Mhm.
Let it go. If they
Breathe.
reject something, that's not a cue for you to keep digging. Although, if you were like maybe a therapist or a psychotherapist, I'd be like, oh, let's go deeper here. That's not your job as a coach to pick at a scab that your client doesn't want to be picked at. Just let it go. It's
Yeah, this conversation reminds me of the "It's Not About the Nail" video, and she's talking about she's got a nail stuck in her forehead and she's complaining, and he says, "Well, take the nail out." And she's like, "It's not about the nail," and so she rejects him from showing that pain, and maybe it is a little bit something different that they'd rather talk about. It could be painful or not, but don't dig into problems that maybe you're not qualified or can't handle, or they're not ready to handle. They're not ready to dive deep into something that could be fresh still, could be a new tendered wound.
if we continue with that metaphor, if you decide to take the nail out yourself, the brain fluid might start to leak out of the hole.
So,
Right.
leave the
From what you started with. So if it's not your job to treat a nail in the forehead, don't pull on it. Just let it
Don't
go.
treat a nail in the forehead. Right.
Work on something else that your client wants to work on.
let the doctor do that.
And I think that's especially for a new coach, right? Maybe the hardest thing to do is realize that it's not me, not mine. It's not my issue. And when I bring that to light, right, bring that awareness, tell me what's going on there. And as the example you gave, Brooke, like, it's just my thinking face, or, my shoulders drop. Oh, really? Oh, it's nothing to it. Okay. I still sense something, and maybe I'll come back if it comes up. Okay, well, now a little while ago, we talked about whatever that was. And as I reflect, as Lisa was sharing, as I reflect back, I bring that mirror up and say, okay, I'm noticing it again. Something's happening when you talk about this thing. But other than that, if they say that it's this or it's not that, or even if they're not ready, then me as the coach, then I got to take a moment to just breathe. And as Anthony said, just short and sweet, let it go. Because I want to be where the client is, because that becomes about me, right? When I say, okay, well, it is emotional. You look very upset right now. And I want to know why. Now I'm making it about me, and it's not mine in the first place.
I love that you said that. I was chomping at the bit to bring it back to that we got to, when you said meet the client where they're at, we have to be there with the client. We are in that world, is the world we're in is the one the client is painting. And so we have to believe it. And it's not our job to tell them the way that they're painting it is incorrect, or to tell them what they're painting is not right. We have to just be in there, be a part of it, and be 100% in the world they are creating, and be willing to go with them. And so I think if we rejected it, right, at that point, it might do some serious damage as well with regard to rapport for you and your client. And so, no, one of the things that's interesting is we do have moments that we've talked about, and it's something we even say in class. So I would love to sort of talk about this, where we go, you are going to feel uncomfortable. There might be moments that this is uncomfortable. Talk to me about that. When we say that, or even in a coaching space, what do we mean by that? Or
Well,
what
there's your comfort zone, and then there's everything else that's outside the comfort zone. And the comfort zone is usually where most people want to be. They feel safe. This is what they know. And the uncomfort zone is what they don't know and what they're unfamiliar with. Not necessarily that it's painful, because when you get out of your comfort zone, you might realize, oh, this is comfortable. I like this. This is now part of the comfort zone now. There might be other times, though, where you're like, oh, no, this sucks. And this is definitely a painful and uncomfortable experience. But you don't know because it's not in your comfort zone. And that's why it's scary, because there's that uncertain element to it.
And why is it scary? Because why is uncertainty scary?
Because it could be dangerous. You don't know if it's dangerous or not, because you haven't had the experience to inform you on that. So you don't know until you actually go out there and do it. So my comfort zone is the four walls of my apartment. And I have to, if I want new experiences, I have to go outside of my metaphorical, little box and experience new things. And that comes with uncertainty and dangers, but also good things.
The potential for pain, too.
Yes.
I think we talked about this a while ago too, but being in control, I think when you're out of the comfort zone, you lose that sense of control of maybe where we're going or headed. I myself, I think on the last live that I was on, found out that I am a control freak. And so sometimes when I do get into that uncomfort zone, I don't know where we're steering the conversation. I don't know if it's something I'm qualified to handle or talk about because I'm uncomfortable. But I think in those neutral or uncomfortable zones, you're building that rapport. You're getting into zones that maybe the client or customer is not into as well. And you're building new bridges by doing this, being uncomfortable in the comfortable zone.
And so, go ahead, Kyle.
That was kind of where I was going with it, was just, that was kind of where I was going with it.
I think, so I'm just going to, it's very simple. I mean, I think all of our clients are really good at remaining in their comfort zone or remaining in their discomfort. Like, they're good at doing whatever it is they're doing. And change is always a little uncomfortable and often painful. It can be. And so it's kind of our job as a coach in many situations to work with our clients on, okay, well, let's figure out what is gonna how we're gonna get through this, how we're gonna get you moving, get you out of whatever situation, get you doing what you're doing, and sort of begin to be able to use that pain or address it so that they can sort of get into motion and get moving. When we say something like, very literally, let's make your pain your gain. One of the things we're really talking about is motivations in this too. And I think it's something we haven't fully addressed, is this motivating factor. And the fact that pain can be a motivator. What does that mean?
The first step before even there's a coaching session, most of the time, I'd say 90% of the time, there is some painful motivator that causes a person to seek out a coach. They have to find a coach for some reason. They're trying to achieve something, and usually that what they're trying to achieve is fulfilling a lack or addressing a pain point of theirs. is. I see this a lot of time in our lunch and learns and like the marketing stuff when people, you know, what kind of client they're looking for. It's somebody with a pain point that needs to be addressed.
I will tell you, in every marketing class, if you've ever been in a market, one of the first things they'll always go through is pain points. Pain points are going to come up at some point.
Yeah,
And
that.
go ahead,
Oh,
Mike.
go ahead,
Mike,
Brooke. I'm sorry.
No.
No, just that question around like the motivator, right? It's that thing that makes you, when you tap into that pain, you realize, like Anthony said, that motivating factor, something made you reach out to a coach. You know, I want to run, right? I want to run to lose weight, but I have this pain or I have this thing going on, or that, back to what we just finished talking about, that fear of the unknown or uncertainty. So if things are in the comfort zone where we're ruminating, maybe if the possibility or that thing we need, the goal is outside of that, then of course in that space now we want to tap into more of that motivating factor of, because that's why we talk about often tapping into the perceived need, right? You know what it is. If you hold on to this, if nothing changed, what happens? Or if you let go, or at least maybe halfway open up my hand. Maybe I'm not ready to fully relinquish it yet, but maybe if I just open up a little bit, now I can start to see what's on the other side of this pain or this thing I'm dealing with. That's going to motivate me even more. And so I think the biggest drive or motivation from it, and even in personal experience, physical pain, was I'm getting tired of feeling this pain. And I know that now if I don't do anything different, the pain is not going to be any different. And that's not good, because I'm tired of being at the top of this pain scale. So the motivating factor for me to keep pushing through this pain is, well, if they say exercise is the right thing for me to do, I know every time I exercise, it hurts more. Oh, wait a minute. 2 months later, that pain is a little less now. Wow, now I can actually cross my leg, you know, this broken limb that I have. Now I can actually cross my leg or do some things that I haven't been able to do since prior to the accident or whatever this is happening. So that's that motivating factor. It really gives you that energy, and it's that snowball effect. I lean into the pain a little more. Oh, this is different. Now I want to do more. And so I think that's how we can switch it as well, and how we can help our clients like really see the benefit versus, you know, the holding on versus tapping into it and getting past that. What's going to motivate them moving forward on their journey?
I think that one of the things that you brought up, I think, is really something that is critical. And it might be something critical I think it's critical for coaches to keep in mind with their clients and when working with their clients and working on goals. And that's a concept of sort of short-term gratification versus long-term gratification, right? So in the short term, in the interim, in the beginning moment, there's a lot of things we can do to alleviate pain quickly and alleviate, maybe solve it. I mean, in a very literal sense, maybe it's take a painkiller, but ultimately taking Advil is not treating what the bigger issue is, right? And so this is a metaphor here, right? Taking Tylenol isn't going to solve the initial problem of what's causing the pain. So it might help in the short term, but what's really critical is looking at that long term, right? What long term is gonna what in 2 months, in 3 months, in 6 months, where it's gonna stick, can we do that might be painful, that might suck, that might cause all these things, but ultimately that's 6 months out. Bam, that's where it's going to be awesome, right? Or 1 year. And so it's keeping that focus and that on that long-term goal is what Mike brought, and that long-term gratification. And that's why emotional relevance, I think, is so critical in this, because we have to know emotionally where our clients, they have to know where they're going to be in those emotional outcomes and how their life is going to change, so that they can get through these pain points, these things that might be painful along the way to get to where it is that they want to go. But it's that long-term focus is so critical. And Mike, you brought that up. Like, I might be in pain, but that 2 months, look at that. Overall, it's getting better. And overall, it's getting, and so, but I think we as humans can get so mired in I just want the quick fix.
Yeah. I want it to go away now.
Uh-huh.
What
want
can
it
I
to go
do
away
for this to
now.
go away? And when I was full-time personal trainer, one of the first questions I used to ask was, whatever you're trying to fix, right? Or people would come with a lofty goal. You know, I want to lose 50 pounds by my son's wedding or my daughter's wedding, right? And I always would ask the question, how long have you been carrying that excess 50 pounds?
True story.
When did it happen?
Yeah.
You know, it's been a 25-year journey, Mike, of just not being as active or whatever that is. And like you say, we want the fix now. Well,
I want it to
this
happen.
thing is happening in 3 months. It's happening in 3
Right?
months. So what can you do to fix this? It's like, okay, that's fine. Now let's be realistic and talk about what we're going to do. That's where it goes back to what you said, but this can probably be uncomfortable, but let's be realistic for a moment and think about what's feasible for you to do. What small changes can you make now to reach that ultimate goal? Because right now, it's going to be more painful when you focus on the fact that you want it now before even doing the work to start to peel back the layers, because there's always an issue behind just, oh, this problem, right? And that's why I always ask that question, because I begin to shine the light on, you know what, I've been making poor choices for the last 25 years, and it's got me to this point, but now I want to change in 6 months.
And I think that's also, I mean, what you bring up is a brilliant point, and I'm applying it to my personal life, of course, because we all do this, right? We run it through our personal filters. But in January, I set the goal of just really focusing on my health and really getting myself into better shape and just doing what I needed to. By April, I was getting frustrated because I felt like I wasn't seeing the results I wanted, right? 4 months in, but it was just about, I just kept at it, right? And now I'm 11 months in, and I'm seeing the result. The results are happening, right? And now that's a whole other level of motivation. But what I did that worked for me was there were micro points. Like I've had micro victories along the way that kept me going. That was so critical. And so that brings in, if we take that to a coaching session, right? Each one of those coaching sessions could be a micro goal, a micro moment. What's the goal for this session? Okay, boom, what's going to happen through this week? And all of this is working to the overarching goal, but all of these successes along the way will be the motivation for the big one too. And I think that's really, really very critical along the way. Jen asked a really good question. We're going to have to
very good question.
Yeah.
I think that's one of those where we can easily ignore it, right? Like not tapping into the pain of nothing changing or not switching up. The opposites game is what I call it in coaching. And not doing that sometimes, ignoring that, because sometimes even that could be a little challenge for us as the coach. Like, oh, okay, well, now to kind of push them into this outside of that comfort zone when they're telling you everything, but they're saying everything except I need this to happen. So don't let up right now. I think sometimes we can miss an important opportunity if we don't just ask that simple question of, what if nothing changes for you? What happens then? That may bring them a little bit, that may make them lean into or acknowledge that pain a little bit more. It can be even more painful, but it can be important sometimes, because now I want them to see what's going on, how it's happening, and what is, back to what I said, that benefit of if nothing changed, what's taking place there. Now when we turn the table, that motivator comes back up, right? Like, yeah, well, thank you, Brooke, for bringing that to light. Now that I thought about it, if nothing changes, now I know I want to change. Okay, let's do it. And it goes back to what Brian shared too. Like, I stopped for a moment, but then that it's like that stoplight. But then when the green light or that light changes, it's go time. So now I'm comfortable. I'm ready to go through the pain of this process. 3, 6 months, a year. Brooke, in your case, 11 months. Now I have something. I'm tapping into that reward. I feel that emotional, that physical change. So I think a lot of times that question that Jen dropped, it can be a space of kind of not necessarily literally dropping the ball, but it can be a missed opportunity for coaches. And sometimes it's us that we're uncomfortable really tapping into that space. And I think it can be really important for the client if we do.
Mike, do you ever think that it's a point where you could be challenging the person you're working with by bringing out like, what if you can't do it? Bringing in the opposite. Do they ever feel like, oh well, you're challenging me, and I feel like attacked almost, like I can't make those goals, or if I can't, that's how it's looking or appearing by tapping into that opposite? Or do you always think that it's a missed opportunity by at least acknowledging what happens if they can't do it?
No, it could be. It definitely could be, right? It could be that feel of that challenge. And so going back to remembering that it's not me, not mine, not my issue. If that happens, then okay, let's address that. What's coming up now in that space? Because sometimes the challenge helps, but it's a person-to-person basis. To this point, I've never had where a client came out and said, well, why did you ask me that? We talk about the importance of when to use why. I've never had that come up of, well, that feels like an attack on me or challenge to me. But I've had times where a client pause, and I leave that pause where they say, it's almost that no one's ever asking me that, or I've never asked myself that. So it could be. And I would say when you notice that, going back to that rapport that you build with that client, when you notice that it felt challenging, then maybe I'm going to navigate it a little bit different the next time. But it definitely can be that case where it can feel like a challenge. But sometimes it may be the very thing that's needed.
It's something I definitely done in some of my sessions before, where what they're hoping for as a result, there's a lot of factors outside of their control that they're trying to influence. And so I've asked them, okay, so what will happen? What will you do if this succeeds? Okay, we'll have that conversation. What will you do and what will happen if this doesn't succeed or doesn't go the way you intended? And then we have that conversation, because most of the time it seems that there are definitely factors outside of the client's control that can affect their goals and situations. The more stuff that is directly in their control, I tend not to ask that. I just take their word. Okay, you're going to do what you said you're going to do, and then we'll talk about it the next session or something like that.
I think too, but wait, to Mike's point, there was a very is sort of doing that exploration. What's the worst that can happen? What is the most painful possible outcome here, right? What is the best that can happen? What is the best possible outcome? Okay, well, if the worst possible, most painful outcome happens, how do you maneuver through that, right? But then to Mike's point, one of the amazing things that maybe we don't think of as coaches is we're giving them the best and the worst of if they do, adding that, well, what's the worst that can happen if you do nothing? Is another piece that maybe we often don't think of, but that's sort of where I think a lot of our clients are. They're coming to us because they're in that state of, I'm not moving, I'm not doing. So what happens if you continue to do nothing? What's the best outcome of doing nothing? What's the worst outcome of doing nothing? And I think that's another way to look at it, honestly.
Yes, it's like exploring all those options, right? And even what Lisa just shared, right? Maybe it's not the way. Maybe it's not the home run. Maybe it's second base that's going to get us to that next step in our journey. And we may have to hang out there for a year or whatever. That's okay, because it's life, right? So even in that space where you talk about, you may encounter as a coach, you do the worst case scenario, right? Of the now, if nothing changes. And then when you get there, and both of them seem a little cloudy. Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't like this, but I just don't think I can do that thing, right? The finish line. In that space, what's halfway point? What's a halfway point? What can you do? So it's really just kind of, as I always share in class, like it's that subtle dance, right, of the coaching and that conversation in the coaching session that you're having with your client, of really just responding if the client was the leader in that dance, right, that we're doing, responding to what that step, that move, that last thing they said. So, okay, that's okay. What's the halfway point maybe? What happens when we do have some of these obstacles that comes up halfway? And that's okay as well. So that's the important thing, just really shining a light on all possible outcomes, right, or options for the client. And I think that's where we really can empower the client, even though it takes a little bit of slowing down for us to pick up on those things. I think that really creates a client that now they start to be more empowered and the sessions change.
Yeah, I think also too, one of the things we talk about too in this space is with pain, regard to pain. I think as a coach, what we need to do also is always allow for our clients to feel it, to go through it, give them the space if that's what they need, right? And then, but we should never brush it away. If somebody's crying with something we teach, right? We don't necessarily hand them a tissue, right? We don't necessarily, we just give them the space to feel what it is they're feeling and not give it a label. And I think that's really important too in this. The other thing that I was thinking as you were sharing, Mike, in this is but Jen's question threw me off completely. So yeah, why would you do that? Jen, why would you do that? But when let's say you have a client you've been working with for a while, or you have a client that is scared to do something because they are worried about a painful outcome. There is an opportunity for us to sort of in this moment ask about other painful outcomes and the client having made it through, and how did you make it through that, right? There is an opportunity for us to do that, to utilize success that our previous successes our clients have had in painful situations to or act as a sort of reassurance without us reassuring as coaches that they are where they can tap into that internal reassurance. Oh, I did do that. Oh, I did get through that. I am okay today. And I did experience that. So I know I can do this. And that the successes they've had through pain might serve as a way to even better, I guess, support them taking painful steps forward. Jen, why would you ask that?
You should roundtable it. Roundtable that.
So we're almost
Before
done.
we do that,
we're gonna wrap this up. Yeah.
Before we do that though and wrap it up, one of the things Brian shared something in the chat coming from YouTube. What would progress look like for you today? Questions. Could you ask those questions? What would progress look like for you today? And then what would it look like for you this week, next week? That's open. And so for that, to answer Brian's question, sure, because both of those are open-ended questions, of course, one at a time. But yeah, what would it look like for you next week? If you really have a client that's really stuck in the space of now in the finish line, maybe it's a 2-year goal, a long-term goal, maybe that would be awesome. What does it look like for you progress in 6 months from now? So I just wanted to answer that.
Absolutely. So I don't think we should. Well, what is the most painful thing we've endured? That's
rough. Let's just go with physical pain, everybody.
I'll start it off really quick, and I dropped it in our chat. For me, one of the physical pain, not emotional and stuff like that, but the most physical pain I endured was 2017, a motorcycle accident. And when we talk about pain to motivating, that was motivating factor for me. At the time, I was a full-time personal trainer. So to be up and down on my feet all day, telling people how to move and not being able to walk, that was a strong motivator. One of the most painful things I endured, and Brooke, as you shared, you broken many bones. I didn't until March 12th, 2017. And all of a sudden it was multiple. So I didn't know what that was. I've always been a strong, healthy person. So that was for me really a big most painful point of my life, but also one of the greatest motivators that gives me the energy in the Mike that you see today.
Yep. And that's really when we move through it. That's why being in pain means growth. Typically, if we handle it correctly. All right, keep going, guys.
It's pain's so versatile. There can be like a very acute type of pain or something that's prolonged. If we're speaking physically, I think just what sticks out to me the most is probably breaking my wrist. I couldn't sleep for about 48 hours, legitimately couldn't, until I could actually get in and have the doctors kind of realign my hand and put it back over my bone. And still, even after that, it was horrible. If we're speaking physical, we're not going anymore. We don't have enough time for emotional right now. So.
Right, that's a whole nother lie.
That's a deep dive. I am a tomboy, and I have a tomboy who recklessly throws herself into ridiculous things. So I have broken many a bone. I also have a weird disease that caused me to have my knee replaced. I was almost murdered. I also more recently have been trying to figure out why I've been experiencing some crazy pain. Pain has been an outstanding motivator in my life. I will say that pain helped me to change the entire way I live because of pain in my body and lower back, and it affecting the way I walked and affecting the way I lived. And it absolutely has, because you don't want to live like that anymore. You realize, because the pain's getting worse, that if you keep going the way you're going, it's just going to get worse. And so you start to go, okay, things got to change. So, but has that stopped me from still being a tomboy? Not 100%, but I've gone at least like 8 years without breaking a bone. So I win in that department, but I don't know, maybe not. Maybe I'm doing less exciting things. I broke my first bone by jumping off the back of a moving truck and riding the door down. Because the guys have been doing it all day, and if they could do it, I could do it. So I did it, but then I put my hand down first, the door came down, and it broke all the bones in my right hand. And that sucked because I couldn't write. And then I broke again my wrist, and then I was in an elbow cast like this. I was literally like this, like I was a cartoon. Like I was that guy in every comedy movie it was ridiculous. So yeah.
It's the guy with the broken bones from SpongeBob.
The guy with the broken bones has got so that because otherwise, if it hangs down, all the blood rushes and it sucks. So you're like always trying to keep your arm up. It's yeah. Kyle,
Round us out.
Nothing in my life more painful than what you just described, bro. That was tough.
Right.
Oh no, I had my knee replaced, and I fell in the shower like right afterwards, and that was acute pain like I have never felt in my life. Like, so
I would say for me, I have not, thankfully, knock on wood, not gone through serious accidents, breaking bones. I've had a pretty blessed body, but I recall mentally looking in the mirror a couple of years back and just being disgusted about how I looked. It was just me. Nobody told me. Nobody was like, gosh, Kyle, you're too skinny, too fat. No one said that to me. I never heard that, but I was disappointed in how I looked. And I remember looking at myself in the next week or so, just re-changing my whole routine, really getting into the gym, eating appropriately, checking out research of what you should be eating, not eating, supplements. And since then, my life has changed. I'm very frequently in the routine of going to the gym, staying healthy, cooking responsibly, not going to fast foods. And it was just because of that one painful night of looking at myself and not being happy. And I wanted to turn that and change that. And so now I feel like I've gained, because I'm constantly progressing into something what I want. There's no end result, but at least I'm not looking back at and saying, stagnant at this body figure that I didn't like.
I will tell you, as a woman, once a month, usually the day before her period, every woman looks at herself and is disgusted. But it is 100% because of hormones. And you just learn as a woman to, okay, wait, and give it a few days and it'll go away. That's awesome, though, Kyle. Amazing that you were able to make those changes, too. Probably the control freak in you doing you some favors there.
Could be.
Jerome, did you?
Yeah, I went.
Jerome went.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah,
Anthony
Anthony didn't share.
Anthony wasn't gone.
So the most physically painful thing was also simultaneously the most emotionally painful thing, and that was like a whole 8-hour freaking odyssey for me. So I won't get into that. And strictly the most painfully physically thing, I think maybe like getting my jaw surgery and the recovery period after that, because I was just, my face was just huge. I looked like a 300-pound man face on the body of a 110, 20-pound, teenager. But also like being nauseous and just sick and being in my room and super bad headaches, and just the whole recovery period was just a week of just horrible, horribleness, and like being like just out of it. So that was a very painful recovery, but I came out a handsomer man with a perfect jaw now. That's, I guess, like surgeries are an example of where it's painful, but you will hopefully come out better on the other end, or have more capability than you did have prior to getting the surgery.
Otherwise, you probably wouldn't do it.
Yeah, get surgeries to make yourselves worse off, I guess. Maybe if you do surgeries on other people and you're trying to like harvest their organs, maybe. But
Jen said Pixar didn't happen.
I destroyed all the evidence of that, so nobody could see that.
All right, guys, that's the end of it. Mike, thank you so much for being here. Kyle, thank you for being here. You're here slightly more often than Mike, so that's why I'm giving Mike extra love. Thank you too for being here, Kyle. And thank you to everybody out there watching. If you enjoyed this and you want to know more, check out Certified Life Coach Institute. Also, be sure to like and subscribe. We need your support for us to be successful in our endeavors. So please, please, please give us a like and a follow, and tell all your friends about us if you haven't already. We certify life coaches in 3 days, and you could take a class with one of these amazing human beings if you did attend. Yes, Mike could be your teacher. Kyle could be your
I love on my hand. I love on my hand just as you're talking.
All right. Thank you so much, guys. Bye.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to today's episode. Once again, this is brought to you by Certified Life Coach Institute. We're an ICF accredited school who certifies our life coaches in 3-day online intensive courses. In addition to other podcast episodes, feel free to check us out every Tuesday at 4:00 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on YouTube or Facebook for our CLCI Lives, where we get together and discuss various topics that are centered around sharpening your skills so you can become a better certified life coach. For more information, feel free to visit us at certifiedlifecoachinstitute.com. Until next time, be well.